Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Great to have you with us today for our webinar on navigating the future of finance. It's great to have you with us today. My name's Stephen Friend. I'm with Kilimanjaro Consulting. I'm really excited to have us joined today by a number of special guests. We have Gary Green, of course, and Paul Billette, who are going to take us through today's session. In terms of a little bit of housekeeping, just please be aware that you have the Q&A button on your Zoom interface. Please use that Q&A button to lodge any questions that you have, and we'll be sure that during the dedicated Q&A session at the end that we'll work through those. Without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to our guests. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Stephen. Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking time out today to listen to kind of a future of finance and how AI is going to help. I'm Gary Green, Managing Director of Quanton, and we've been kind of involved in the market for almost 9 years in digital transformation using automation and AI to basically help businesses be more productive and grow their businesses and add real value. And when we look at AI, there's a lot of interest in AI, and it's also interesting what the kind of experts are saying as well. And for example, the Australian economy, the Tech Council of Australia see that it's an $80 billion business in the next few years, and you can see some of the adoption that you're getting from slow to medium to fast paced. But again, as we go through, we'll kind of position why AI is important to your business and why you can't afford to be left behind. You need to be in that fast adoption, medium adoption space. If you're a laggard, you're going to be outcompeted. Importantly, Ray Kurzweil, who's a visionary futurist, he predicts that in the next 100 years, we're going to have the whole of humanity's advancements condensed into that. Our last 20,000 years are going to be condensed. This is why the world's changing at an ever-increasing pace. But the reason is why. I mean, we've all heard of the first industrial revolution that was powered by steam and industrialization and start of production in factories and a mass migration. And with any revolution, there's a fundamental change in society. And this was the move from an agriculture-based to industrial-based economy. Then we had the second industrial revolution. It brought electricity, which was effectively the ability to distribute power rather than be centralized around steam engines. Then we had the third industrial revolution based on computing. And that goes way back to the last century when we had mechanical computing devices, then valves, transistors, integrated chips, and the next generation is going to be quantum computing. And then we're actually in the fourth industrial revolution, but we're only just scratching the surface of that. And that's really around how we use intelligence. And there's a number of exponential technologies that are converging here that are powering that growth and change. Now, there's an important fundamental to what's different in this fourth industry 4.0, fourth industrial revolution. And if we take a step back, we're wired for linear activity. If we take 30 steps, we go 30 meters. We know exactly where we are. We're halfway on the journey, where we're near the end, where we're going to get there. Now, the problem is that when it comes to exponential, which most of these technologies are that are changing our world significantly, they're exponential. That means an exponential progression is you take one step, you then take 2 steps, you take 4 steps, you take 8 steps, and it's a kind of graph that kind of changes like that. Now, the thing is, if you take 30 exponential steps where you're doubling, you're going to travel over a billion meters. The problem is you don't know where you are on that journey if you're halfway. And effectively, when you're doing an exponential progression of those 30 steps, the last 5 steps cover almost 97% of the journey. So this kind of gives rise to, when you compare exponential technologies with linear technologies, they're often seen as inferior, underestimated because they're progressing but fly often under the radar. Then they pop up into that mainstream cutover. You saw that with conversational AI and the GPTs. You've seen it with digitization of media, music, etc., etc. And by that stage, they're now progressing so fast that the pace of change is unstoppable. But the thing is, they then disrupt the industries that you're looking at. What's really important there is that it's that disruption and the business models that you can do around that are really critical. Now, some of the kind of exponential technologies that we're looking at, this is just a snapshot. I looked at the exponential kind of group that I'm involved in. We've got there's about 26 plus technologies. This is just a handful. And again, today we're just going to focus on the kind of artificial intelligence automation side of it. But all of these are acting in isolation or in combination. And they're all changing at an exponential pace that's driving that. Now, artificial intelligence is one of those technologies, as I mentioned. And my kind of interpretation of it is that it's really a machine's ability to perform cognitive functions that we normally associate with the human mind. There's a lot of misperception about artificial intelligence, what it is, what it's capable of. And I just kind of, there's two main categories I look at it as: narrow field AI or there's general AI. Now, in narrow field, there's technologies such as machine learning. Now, this is where computers learn from data without explicit programming. And the important thing here is that we need data, we need to extract features, select models, and train the machine or the AI algorithm around stuff and then fine tune it. And the model is really good. So for example, machine learning can do real narrow field things. Like if you train it to recognize cats, it will be absolutely outstanding at recognizing cats in any environment. But if you put a bicycle in there, it won't recognize it because it's not been trained. So this is a really important kind of feature, that it is very good in the field you put it into and what you train it for. There's also kind of other permutations of machine learning, and there's deep learning as well. And this is where, to train the model, we use neural networks, and it's like making a virtual brain, and neural networks that combine to link memories, identifications of things, and so on. And this is hugely powerful. Now, this technology goes way back to the 1950s, but it's only really in recent years where we've had the affordability of GPUs en masse, as well as a plethora of training data. And having those two combined with this technology has really powered it forward. Then we've got generative AI, or GPT. And this has really come to the fore in the last couple of years, when people have had access to ChatGPT and other things like Dataline, be able to pull pictures from text. Hugely powerful and very useful. But it's also, with all of these technologies, it's important there are some limitations and risks you need to be aware of that I'll come on to, of how you adapt to use them. Now, that was narrow field. Artificial general intelligence is really that you have an AI that can do what humans can do, as good as, if not better. And that's the adaptability to operate in any environment, understand the surroundings, contextualize, and do that. At the moment, there isn't an AGI out there, and there's very mixed opinions on when will we achieve that. And there's certainly some of the big tech companies are striving hard to get there, but some observers say it's 3 years away, some say 5, 10, some say we'll never get there. And then if we do get there, what's it going to be? Is it going to be a rosy future for everyone and an all-benevolent AI that helps everybody? Or some people believe it's more going to be like the Terminator. So, opinions out on that. Depends who's driving it, who owns it. Now, in the kind of a ChatGPT space, generative AI, SORA is done by the ChatGPT team. And it's interesting, this is actually a GPT that will take a prompt. And for example, this prompt is a computer hacker Labrador retriever wearing a black hoodie sweatshirt, sitting in front of a computer with the glare of a screen emanating from a dog's face as he types very quickly. That was the text that was put in. And this is a video that was produced by that. So it's interesting. That technology is, if you're in the kind of video industry marketing, it fundamentally changes how you can operate. And there's already companies now that are using this to produce videos quicker. When I've shown this to customers, they're going, oh my goodness, I can do my training videos quicker. We can do our marketing quicker. And it's this kind of democratization of a technology and putting it in people's hands to do this. But equally as well, some of the risks you need to be aware of are that you don't necessarily want to share your IP of how you do stuff in training videos in general public, because it could potentially lose your competitive advantage and share it with your competitors. So these are some of the things you also got to think about with AI. Fundamentally, all these models rely on data. and they need to source that data from somewhere, whether it's your own system, your data that you've got, whether it's open source data. But again, that data may have bias, may have discrimination. And again, if you look at training that are done in the past, they may favor certain ethnicities or economic groups, etc. Or there's just, there's gaps in it, stuff made up. So you've got to be very careful on the data you train on that to build your model out, or actually create synthetic training data or source new data around that. Also, there's issues around privacy. Certainly the banks that we deal with, they won't allow GPTs to be used because they are concerned there'll be leaching of customer information and their IP and other stuff into the public domain. Other organizations are put safeguards around of use this technology, but ring fence it within their own environment to put the privacy in there. You've got to be very wary that where there's tools that are AI that are free, there's a reason they're free, because they want your data. They want to train it. So just beware, everything has a price, especially stuff that's free. And equally on that, there's been a bit of a kind of storm last week. The Privacy Commissioner in New Zealand weighed in against Microsoft. In the EU, they were threatening legal action against Microsoft because with their latest iteration of Copilot, they, by default, it samples a user's screen every 5 seconds. So that means that everything you're doing is being scraped by the technology provider, and they've got access. If you're going into your bank account at a time, that's being scraped. If you're visiting a dodgy website, that's being scraped. If you're doing personal messages, etc., if your company data is on there. So a big concern, and that was by default with the Privacy Commissioner in the EU and other interventions. Microsoft actually switched that off. It's not a default. So you just got to be very wary around what some of the big tech companies are doing with that. And if they're extracting information, where does that information go? How's it being held? So you need to plan any AI implementation very carefully. And equally as well, your security, you don't want to create a kind of vector or way in that can do you damage as well. So you've got to make sure you've got adequate layers of protection and how you deal with stuff as well. And then also a thing called hallucinations. And this is certainly with some of the AIs and especially on GPTs, that if they don't know stuff, they make it up. So it's also that you should always check the results you get. I mean, I do use some of the technology to help me in research stuff, but it's in areas that I've got a good understanding. And I will always check what it gives me, because it does make some stuff up or do wrong references. And if you're in an area that you don't understand or know, you're at risk of taking stuff that's not accurate or could be misleading. And again, like say, if you do have your own private instances, it can be a better way of actually sourcing the data and answers that you get out of this to minimize that. But you've got to know the kind of risks that you're getting with this. And equally, we see a lot of people that have got really high expectations of what AI can do. And sometimes they see it as a silver bullet because they've underinvested in getting the basics right in a business and believe that they can leapfrog a lot of doing that. There aren't any shortcuts. You do need good processes. You need good data. You need good security. You need your people to know what they're doing. You need to train your people how they're going to use this, and also give them the awareness and empowerment to use these tools. There are no silver bullets to get you ahead in this. You do have to do the groundwork if you want to get the benefits. And the other thing as well is, when you're going to put in a shiny new toy, don't be overwhelmed by the shininess. Why are you doing this? Is this going to make you more efficient? Is it going to increase your productivity? Is it going to make you quicker in your business environment and outcompete your competitors? Is it to assist in compliance? It's really important to understand what are you trying to achieve, and then will this actually help, or how will you configure it to help you? So certainly we look around when we put any technology in, it's an integrated approach around people, process, data, and the system. But again, it's to deliver, is it business and operational value? Is it customer value? Is it employee value? And if you get all three, that's a triple win. But these are all things that we've seen AI can bring if you plan it well and you do it well. And automation can also bring those as well. And it's like any transformation program, you've got to actually think about what the outcomes are you've got to get to because again, you can put something in and it won't be followed unless you do follow a recognized approach. Now, AI is not going to take your job or replace you as a manager, but basically managers and companies that are using AI will replace you and outcompete you. And fundamentally, AI will change the way you're going to work. And it's always good to find this. And IBM Senior Vice President Rob Thomas has kind of been quoted recently in saying this, but there's others that quote it as well around your business. But this is fundamentally, the thing is, this technology is moving so quickly. The kind of benefits it is bringing so rapidly are game changers. And so you need to embrace it. You need to embed it in what you're doing, because if you don't, others will, and you won't be able to compete. Now, mentioned we've got what we find helps businesses when they're going to adopt AI, use automation, do this sort of stuff. If your business has got a clear vision, that's great, because you've got a direction you're going. You need to make sure that these programs are aligned with that, and you've got sponsorship. The most successful programs have sponsorship from the top. That's from the board, the CEO, the exec team. Because if you try and do this tactically, you're very limited in the effect that you can have, because some of these changes that you need to do are across the whole organization and how you're going to operate. And it's got to be owned at the top and ensure adequate resources invested. And it's not just financial resource to do this, it's time and commitment from key subject matter experts and key leaders and managers in the business. Thing is, well, this isn't an immediate thing. You turn a switch and it's all shiny and it all works. It is a journey. And for my successful programs, they start small, experiment, phase it, get the wins on the board, learn and grow and apply it. Don't make it bigger than Ben-Hur to start with. And as I said before, you've got to know what benefits you're after. If you just have to cost out, that's really one-dimensional. If you put this technology into your business, you're talking about changing the way you operate, and you've got to actually look at what that means in benefits of being able to go faster, being more productive, improving customer journeys, etc., reducing risk, reducing errors. Equally, the technology is moving so quickly. No one person or no one organization is across all of this. You need to work with experts. And there's experts across all the different fields that you need. And it's bring them in, get support, ask people, talk about it. Yeah. Equally, you're going to have to invest in your people around this, the training, and also the culture. Again, the operating model that you've had in the past might be command and control. The model you need going forwards, much more empowering of your people, setting a clear direction and empowering them to get on with it, but giving them the tools and training to do that and leverage these technologies. Equally, said before, you've got to take an integrated approach. So it's like around people, op model, having your processes, data, and the technology all in harmony as you move forward. And often we find that you need to kind of get these together to go forward. If you're exceeding in one and underperforming in another, it's going to hinder you and create tensions. And mentioned before, you need top level buy-in, but you can also get buy-in from the team and across the business. And often in building out, ideating, experimenting, it's important to involve wider teams. So you get that involvement, you get the commitment, and also you get the communication across the business. And we also find it's important to have good people that are problem solvers that embrace this. And you'll always get blockers, but you've also got to manage that as well. Also, you've got to have good processes, because if you're trying to put an AI across a bad process and massive deviation, you can end up with a big mess really quickly. So you need to make sure that you've got your operating model and processes sorted. And also, like I said before, you need good data around this. So there's also process stuff you've got to do to cleanse that and make sure you're getting good, consistent data going forward. And there's risk with it. I identified a few earlier, but you need to know what those risks are, how you're going to manage them so you don't get into a world of trouble. I mean, there's more compliance going to come around this, and ethical considerations as well that you've also got to have, especially in environment. And when you're in a regulated environment like finance, you need to make sure that you work with a chief risk officer, and it's within the kind of levels of comfort and risk appetite that you've got there, and you've got the right checks and balances in place. Okay. Thank you. I'll hand over now to yourself, Stephen, and Paul.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, hi everybody. Gary's going to do the driving, so I'm going to do some talking. I'm just going to follow on from what Gary's talked about. I'm the CEO of Dataline, and just talk about how we can practically go forward with AI. So Dataline's been around for 30 years, and we've really been combining the power of automation with workflow platforms, and really to offer automation, digital transformation solutions. So what we're looking to do is automate financial processes, really look to enhance that efficiency, streamline operations. And I suppose the unique part there is that we're doing what we term augmenting between people and technology, really having people within the loop of the technology solution that we're delivering. So at a very high level, what we're trying to achieve from a Dataline perspective is finance automation. We do that through digitization of different documents, accounts payable automation, and what we term AI bots. And underlying all of this is people and technology. And I'm just going to sort of scale through this a little bit and talk a bit about how we can practically go forward with this. And so the first the area I'm going to talk about is empowering finance with human AI collaboration. And I'm going to talk about humane technology. Next slide, Gary. So AI should be viewed as a transformative force, not really a replacement. And AI has made a lot of strides in the area of the ability to really perform vast amounts of data, complex calculations, and automate structured and repetitive tasks. But it still has a limitation around the ability to get those nuances of human capability. And AI is augmented, when AI is augmented with human values, the cognitive reasoning, context, wisdom, and social norms that we have, it really is a game changer. Let's go. So what we're looking to do here is really understand that financial landscape and how we can use AI. And we're really wanting to build AI in our day-to-day processes, realizing that AI exists not to take away those human jobs, but to really take away those mundane tasks that actually make us feel less human. And we want to adopt this human-led, human-organized AI, because that's the way that we're going to be able to take it forward and bring our people on that journey. And the whole objective here is to give back time to the business and time to our employees. And if we can reduce the time that we're spending on financial processing, it will allow us to upskill and take on more effective and value-added tasks. Thanks, Gary. So here the opportunity is not to take the human out of the workforce, but to take the robot out of the human. A lot of the processes we've been developing are around that basis. So the second part, just how do we drive efficiency through innovation and through this AI? So, thanks, Gary. So the automation and the way it works is the unique game changer is really how it accesses systems via user interfaces. So if you think about an employee, and when you hire an employee, you give them an email, you give them permissions into particular systems. Well, it's very similar in the way you can adopt digital employees. And what it does is it just onboards a digital employee like you would a human employee. Then what we've done is we've taken the software to really mimic the action of that human, where there's a structured, repetitive process. And then that bot will complete those activities and tasks, and then you can choose those from a library of business processes. So the real change here is there's no complex system integrations. There's no change to existing applications, no overlap with existing platforms, and it works within your architecture. And that's a big change. Think about it as like adopting a human employee, but in this case, it's a digital employee. Thanks, Gary. So what we've done is we've taken robotic process automation, which is really that software that's developed those mimicking actions of a human. And we've combined that with content intelligence, which is the ability to take the data off the documents and use that data effectively to transform operations, to effectively make them more efficient and effective. And so that's how we have discovered digital employees. Thanks, Gary. The key thing here is we've still got to ask ourselves some key questions. How is this going to impact my core business? How are we going to implement these bots? And how is this going to impact my people? So we still want to achieve streamlined operations. We want to be able to give our employees back time and really upskill those employees. But where does AI come in that process? And at what part of the process does it come into? Thanks, Gary. The final area I want to just talk about is how we understand these trends, what the practical value, how we can go forward. So there's a lot of discussion around how AI will impact, and Gary's alluded to some of that. There's a recent statement where it will impact 60% of our jobs in the advanced economies and 40% jobs around the world in the next 2 years. And it is going to impact those jobs in a particular way. But what we want to do is really understand how we can leverage the AI technology so that we can really complement what the human brings and what the technology brings to the solution. Thanks, Gary. So the real value of AI in the solutions that we're delivering is in its ability to work at speed. So in a very simple example, an AI could solve 10 maths problems in 1 minute. The equivalent human activity would take 5 minutes per problem. So 50 minutes versus 1 minute. So you sort of take that capability and you stretch it to scale inside an organization. And what you have is what they term a workforce multiplier, essentially getting much more efficiency and effectiveness out of our employees, while also being able to get them to work on more value-added activities. Thanks, Gary. So the real value of Tim Warren at a recent AI summit in Auckland stated that the real value of AI will be in its ability to empower humans and to make better decisions faster. And that's what it's all about. It's about this human collaboration with AI and how are we able to leverage that to ensure that we can deliver processes more effectively, be more efficient, and then really concentrate on the value-added activities that makes the difference from a human perspective. Thanks, Karen. So this brings in this workforce collaboration, and back to the theme of Gary saying we can make better managers, better leaders. It can also do the same for employees. I don't believe AI will replace employees, but AI-enhanced employees will replace those who are not. So now's the time to look, adopt, understand how it can work within the processes that you're doing within your organization. So we're just going to talk quickly about the digital employees that Dataline has been delivering in the marketplace. Thanks, Gary. So we've developed a series of digital employees around practical processes, things like bank allocations, invoice creation, email management, sales order processing. These sort of applications that we can just define in a process, we're delivering digital employees in the market. One of the practical examples of this and how they work is very similar to what I mentioned before. They've got these repetitive activities, which we are using this RPA technology to replicate in a software robot. They're pre-built and they have specific requirements, and we can identify specific processes that we can adapt to. Thanks, Gary. So we have this bot called Banksy AI. It's a banking allocation bot. It automatically manages the bank allocation process for customers, allocates those payments to debtor invoices, and it also identifies any exceptions and produces real-time reporting. So this bot is up and running and effective. Next slide, Gary. And we've got a case study just to talk through. Our customer in New Zealand, Traffic Safe New Zealand, they've adopted Banksy, the bank allocation bot. They're really using a combination here of Dataline's intelligent automation, our OCR, our AI and RPA capability to process those customer payments, but based on a remittance advice and a matching business logic. So what's happening here is it's 10 times faster to process these with no errors. It's allowing the customer to move to more managed by exception process than have to look at every single thing. Here's a recent quote from the customer. They reviewed and validated all the payments. They all were allocated correctly, Banksy is a lifesaver. Everything was perfect, very happy with the results, saving them a couple of hours a day on peak days and a minimum of 15 minutes a day. When I was talking to the manager of the business, they were saying the real impression that they've got is that Banksy has been adopted by the employee as part of their day-to-day work. So it's making that person more efficient and effective, and they've adopted as part of their process. So they're now the champion of those sort of solutions, and they're looking for what else they can do. Thanks, Karen. So how do we move forward? We're really suggesting you invest in what smaller language, that narrow field AI. We've really got specific tasks like accounts payable automation, bank allocation, sales order processing, things that are very defined. Get involved in that. We use this augmented AI as that we believe that that's going to be the future, where the employee is part of the solution. They're embracing the technology, they're learning the technology, and they're bringing it into their processes. And how you should get started is engage with vendors who are in this AI field, maybe run an AI information session or conduct a discovery. Understand how AI can add value to your organization, and then choose the partner you want to go forward with. Scary. Just to give you a bit of flavor of some of the things that you could look at, you've got purchase goods and services, processing invoices, managing quotes to orders, invoicing customers. There's all elements within that finance field that could be adopted in this digital employee area. So you could create purchase orders, you could manage your AP process, you could create and manage customer orders, or generate invoices. There's lots of aspects. It's really understanding where are the pain points, what's consuming your organization, where's that time going, and if those elements are structured and repetitive and mundane, can we adopt some of these digital AI solutions out there to make you more efficient and effective? Right. So next steps, practical next steps of how you could go forward. What we would say is, look, maybe engage in a discovery where we're able to help in a 15, 30-minute discovery where we sort of like a free AI health check, understand your business a little bit more, where your pain points are, how AI can actually benefit the organization. Yep, just back on, Gary. So we have the health check, and then what we're discovering there is, would it be worthwhile looking at one of these digital employees in terms of a managed service AI offering, or do you want to go with a more customer direct delivery model, something more customized to your requirements? And as part of the webinar, we're just sort of saying, hey, there's a boot camp offering if you're interested, or if you do go to implement and you chose one of us to help you with that, we could take $3,000 off that implementation. So the boot camp, if you did decide to do that, next slide, Gary. It really covers understanding the power of AI, assessing your business and the readiness for AI, how you would implement, where it would add the most value, and formulate those practical steps to get there. So that's usually that's sort of a $6,000 session. We're doing a webinar special of $2,900. The QR code actually goes through to an inquiry form, and we're able to assist you if you were interested in something like that. So that's me for just understanding how we can take that AI into a practical example within our businesses, and hopefully we can help you. I think the next slide, Gary, has questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. Some great content there, and great to hear, Gary, about some of what's going on in the industry around AI. It's certainly interesting times. Now, I will make the last call for questions. Please don't hesitate to use that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and let's lodge our questions. So I've got a few here. Gary, Paul, if I can have you both on standby, and just feel free to jump in with whoever wants to take these. In actual fact, I might throw this one at you, Gary. Something artificial can't be that intelligent. What processes make AI smarter than us?
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I think that when you look at it, as I said, there's no general artificial AI that's can cope with the kind of range of activities that a person deals with. However, in narrow field, because of the sheer volume of data that's been ingested by these artificial intelligence for training them. So for example, if you're looking at, say, tumor recognition for breast cancer, the AIs that have been developed around that are looking at millions of scans, more than any person could ever do. They've been trained on what cancer looks like, what good tissue looks like, and what isn't. They've picked up anomalies that a person just couldn't, because they've consumed the sheer volume of data and made connections that we can't. So I guess it's just really that within those narrow fields of specialities, the amount of data that you can expose that AI to is just beyond the realms of what a human could absorb in a lifetime. It's like multiple lifetimes and stuff. And the speed with which it can chanter through that data, make those connections and come up with insights that we can't, that's what makes it cleverer.
That's a great answer, Gary. I think you're spot on there in terms of just the way AI can connect to those dots that we don't necessarily see. Another question here, and Paul, I might throw this one to you. What might have to happen before a business considers looking for an automated financial solution? And I'm just going to add to that, or AI to supplement and support the financial solutions within a business.
Yeah, I think it's got to ask itself, how do we want to progress? Where do we want to take our business in terms of efficiency and effectiveness and using the leading edge technology? How do we balance that leading edge technology with what we do in our business? And that's really where we probably say a good discovery session is just sort of understanding what's out there in a little bit more detail, how it can help your company, and take that sort of first step to getting to more of an automated solution. So it's usually a discovery moment that we're in a competitive environment. How are we going to be able to compete with our competitors in the most effective way possible? How do we enhance the skill set of our people? How do we do more with less? Those are the questions that we're all sort of pondering. And AI is a pathway to being able to achieve that, but it's not magic. It's not going to solve all your problems. And it's how do we blend it in, which is that sort of story that we're trying to get across. It's that augmented story. How do we blend it into a process and blend it into what we do day to day? But yeah, it's not a magic or a silver bullet, as Gary was mentioning, but it is a realization in the organization that I wanted to get more effective and efficient operations from what I'm doing. And I want to be able to free up my staff from doing sort of that mundane, monotonous, repetitive activity and get them onto more value added. And if you can do that and you can take that step, you will gain a competitive advantage.
Yeah, that's great, Paul. I think just adding to that, one of the things we see as businesses grow is just the way in which we need to add resource or add capacity to achieve scale. I think historically we've just thrown more people at it. And it's not surprising when we see a customer service department within a large organization where there's 5, 8, 10 people doing data entry for sales orders. Artificial intelligence really just gives us another approach to achieving scale. So if your business is actually hitting growing pains, if you've got a lot of manual processes and you're needing to supplement additional resources to support that growing scale requirement that you have, that's a really great opportunity to look at AI as a way of supplementing those staff that you have and just doing things smarter. As you said, Paul, smarter with less.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
Gary, how much responsibility will AI automation take from our operations, and how can we maintain our workforce without AI making them redundant?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. That's a good question. And this is part of the approach we very much look at is when we're looking at operations within a business, whether it's finance, HR, sales, onboarding of clients, etc., or selling something. We very much look end to end. What is the process that's been performed there? And then what are people doing within that? What's the waste? What's the opportunity to improve? And a lot of what we do when we look at that is some of this is actually, it may be using AI, it may be using automation, but some of it may be standardization. Some of it's also going that, where is people's time best spent? So for example, we've done some work with, say in the insurance industry with brokers, and they're spending 90% of their time on renewals, on administration. they want to spend their time on customer interactions. So we help them redesign the process. A number of things with process improvement, but then we injected AI and automations across there so that we reversed the paradigm that 90% of the broker's time and renewals was spent on engaging with the customers, and 10% was just on exceptions in the admin. We took the admin away from them. That not only meant that for that brokerage that had about 60 brokers, it meant that it was like massive productivity gain, massive increase in their sales capability that they could do. They weren't looking to get rid of brokers because they invest a lot of time, money, and effort to get them up to speed and build out their relationships. They saw it as a massive, as you said, productivity gain around that. And the value wasn't to reduce cost. The value was they could actually do more, a phenomenal increase in capacity in what they were doing. So you've actually got to think more about how is this going to actually empower your business to be better? And you've got really good, and the big thing we've seen since COVID is people want to retain staff. They don't want to get rid of them. They've invested a lot of money. They want good people. And it's actually about getting your good people to be involved in doing the stuff that they enjoy and adds value to their lives and also your business as well.
Thank you, Gary. Great answer there. Paul, might kick back to you again. How much ownership do we have when subscribing to AI-powered solutions? Won't our data disappear when it goes?
When you subscribe, the simple answer is no. It doesn't disappear. Yes, you've got to it's a cloud type solution, but the ability to control the data and control the bot is still with the customer. So the very specific process orientated solutions, and the data stays within your environment. So back to that treating it like an employee, the data is within the environment of the customer. And so it's allowing the solution to access the data, but it doesn't take the data away and do something else with the data. It all sits within your environment. And I think I mentioned that's that game changer where it's not layers of technology inside an environment. It's the ability for the software bot to go in like an employee would, do some manipulation with the data, do an activity, but it stays within the environment of the customer.
Fantastic. Gary, how long should AI automation be onboarded and used before we could expect to see a return on investment?
Good question. It's how long's a piece of string. It's the thing of go that we get asked, what's our return going to be? What's it going to cost? And we go, well, actually, what process are you looking at? What's the volume of invoices you're going to look at, say, for example, or transactions? How many people do this now, etc.? How much is automatable? How much can the AI do? How much is going to be exceptions? So we normally look at the process. We do an evaluation as to what the benefits are you're going to get out of this, and then what the cost of investment is around there. And then we kind of grade it if you're going to get a return of investment within a year, it's 1 to 3 years, or it's over 3 years, probably not worth doing. But generally, yeah, you do need to assess what you're looking at. Generally, if you've got higher volume activity, if there's more consistency, it's easier to do, so it costs less. And it's also how frequently is this done? Is it done every hour, every day, every week, monthly, yearly? So you've just got, and it's the thing of go that it's that 80-20 rule. So you're really looking at stuff within your business that's absorbing most of your time, effort, and cost. Focus on those to get the returns. The outliers, you're probably better doing manually to start with.
That's great. Now, another question here, and I'll pass this one over to Paul. Can an AI bot access financial systems such as MIB Advanced and answer questions related to financial data, such as what is the invoiced value in Q1?
Yes, it can. It can do rules. Anything rule-based, decision data-based, it can make those decisions for you. You can write that in terms of the software part of the AI. You could write those rules. we keep fairly restricted to, I suppose, that narrow field where there very restrictive activities and rules that the bot is doing. But the manipulations of data through the content intelligence side, it is able to do that, yes.
Just expanding upon that, Paul, I think the Dataline solution is very much focused around process automation and how do we improve our processes. There are other solutions that focus around more of that reporting piece in terms of how do I ask questions of my data. So an example is the Focus Business Intelligence solution. They've recently introduced an LLM into their suite where you could, for example, have a sales solution and ask questions of that sales solution using a natural language LLM, where you can say, a particular client, how is their invoicing or sales changed over a period of time? What products are we seeing increase in sales? What products are we seeing decrease in scale? So some really interesting applications there as well. Another question for you, Gary, regarding digital employees and processing tasks without complex integrations. Are there enablers that make that work or limitations that prevent it?
Okay. Yeah, I take it from this question, we're kind of looking at, say, process automation. And so basically, as Paul explained, with RPA, robotic process automation, its primary means of interfacing is you give it logons like a person. It can use graphical user interfaces and get in that way. Equally, they can use API calls. They can use win service calls. It can use, and certainly our experience with RPA, we haven't found a system it can't connect with. It's just then, you can get ways of getting in, getting information, making it secure. And the other thing is if it uses the same access rights as employees, you've got those layers of security as well around that. Now, around enablers that work and limitations prevent it, the most successful implementations we've seen are where the business drives this, because often we see there can be vested interest in IT departments often slow this down, or that they treat it as a normal IT deployment where you're going, well, actually, you're automating processes. You're putting a platform in that enables you to do that. So it's really around those processes are already existing. You're not changing that unless you change the process. It's also knowing that you've got very good security around these as well, and that often risk and security will raise their hands and want to understand what is in place. And often we restrict rights of bots as per human users, that you can authorize, for one thing, but you can't do something else related into that system. You've got segregation of duties even within the bots as well. What we find as well is that when you put this sort of AI or automations in, it goes faster than the underlying systems can cope with. And often they have to be throttled back to slow it down. Or you do get some systems that they want you to use their proprietary bots, so they'll try and limit access to third parties around that as well. But again, it's understanding what the process is you're trying to do and how you're going to do that. And equally, like you say, the other bit as well is it depends on your environment. If you're all on-prem, if you're cloud, if you're hybrid as well, because certainly the banks are laggards in going to cloud because they've got security concerns that could be gone through. So that can make it difficult when you're putting in AIs that are cloud-based and linked to upgrades in those knowledge bases in large language models or other algorithms around that as well. So it's really important to understand the problem you're trying to solve, the environment you're in, and then what the options are that you've got around that. But once you take a proprietary model, especially around AI, and you try and do it on-prem, the costs just go through the roof because you've got to maintain it, support it. You've got to have some serious horsepower as well to run it as well.
Very good. Now, Paul, anything to add around that last question?
I think Gary's probably covered most of it. I think it's the processing capability. I suppose our focus of taking particular processes within the finance realm and being able to adapt that as an automation solution is probably all about that whole area where AI is lots of things, there's lots of developments, and let's get down to sort of some practical delivery that can make a difference in the organization and really allow employees to take on that learning of AI and what it could do for them. And I think that's the difference that we're probably trying to get across. There's a lot can be done, but let's just go with some practical solutions that we can deliver and that employees can see the value of and the businesses can see the value of.
That's great, Paul. No, that's great. And I think just beyond that, firstly, thank you to both of you, to Gary and to Paul for attending today and for supporting us with this webinar. I think that AI Bootcamp is a great introduction for a lot of the attendees on today's call. If you want to explore AI further, if you want to explore how you can improve the efficiencies within your business through the use of smarter and proven technology, I encourage you to consider that. Thank you all for attending. Really do appreciate it. We will make this webinar available after the session. You'll receive an email about that. Have a fantastic day. And thank you again to Gary and to Paul.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.